Did Joey Jordison actually create Slipknot? Why was he kicked out of the band? Did his degenerative disease lead him to death? Well, we're going to talk about that in this report and many other things. Joey Jordison is recognized for having been one of the founding members of Slipknot. His performance, both on the guitar and drums, led him to position himself as one of the most interesting artists on the global scene at the moment. In turn, with his white mask and intense solos, he ended up becoming one of the favorite members of Slipknot for all fans, and in addition to using his drumsticks well behind the scenes, he was a fundamental piece for the composition of the songs. But that was not all. He collaborated with several bands like Rob Zombie, Korn, System of a Down, Satyricon, Metallica, Ministry, and was part of others like Martyr Dolls and Scar the Martyr. Over time, his energy and impeccable technique positioned him as one of the fundamental drummers in the history of metal. He even came to be named the best drummer of the last 25 years. But unfortunately, not all were good times in his life. He battled against various personal misfortunes, against addictions, and against a disease that slowly ate away at him until July 26, 2021. The day that Joey Jordison died. Before we start, I would like you to tell me if you know Joey and know his masks. Maybe what was your favorite mask? What is your favorite Slipknot song? I also want to read in the comments. I think you tell me your experiences of maybe when you went to see them. If you went to the hotel to take a picture with them, well, I want to know a little about your history with the band here below. So feel free to tell your own anecdotes so we share them among all. I also invite you to leave your like, subscribe and activate the notifications, and to leave suggestions for possible future videos, because we read everything you put and we take it into account for the next videos we are going to release. Now, without further delay, let's begin. In 2016, Jordison, who had already gone through an infinity of sad situations, spoke about his battle against the disease that tried to snatch his career. During his last live performances with Slipknot in Canada, he experienced an uncomfortable sensation. At the end of the concerts, in memory of Paul Gray, while playing the last songs, something started to get complicated for him. Even his colleagues had to help him get up several times. Nobody knew what was happening to him. Not even he understood it. After playing what would be his last date with his band, he felt the strongest pain he had ever experienced in his life. Over time, the musician underwent various and complicated studies to receive a totally disheartening diagnosis. That pain was caused by acute transverse myelitis. This health problem began to take away mobility in his legs until he ended up completely immobilized from the waist down. From that point on, he required immediate hospitalization for medical treatment. During his recovery, Jordison faced great challenges both physically and emotionally. Above all, he was forced to consider how to move forward and how to continue with his musical career, as doctors had told him he would never walk again. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. To know his outcome, we need to start from the beginning. Nathan Jonas Jordison was born in Des Moines, Iowa, on April 26, 1975. Being the eldest of three siblings, Jordison had the responsibility of being a role model for his sisters Kate and Anne. He grew up in a rural area outside of Waukee, and from a very young age felt a great passion for music. At the age of 3, he was already trying to play the drums. He would sit on the floor, arrange some kitchen utensils, and hit everything. But among all the noise he made, something more could be appreciated. During his childhood, he had trouble approaching his schoolmates. He was an introverted boy. He didn't want to make friends because he felt accompanied by music thanks to bands like Kiss and Black Sabbath. In addition to being withdrawn, he was a scared boy. As an adult, he recounted that one Halloween day he came home and his mother scared him like she never had before. She was standing in the corner of the dining room among the shadows, wearing a white robe, and her face was covered with a blank white mask. From that moment on, he couldn't forget what he had felt. What he didn't know at that moment was that this scare was going to become an essential part of his career. With music running through his veins, his parents encouraged his artistic interests, and so he started his first band while he was in elementary school. Initially, he played the guitar, But the boy who played the drums wasn't very good, which led him to switch instruments. Soon after, while he was in 5th grade, his parents surprised him with his own drum set, and from that moment he never stopped learning. Upon entering Waioki High School, things did not get better for him. Unfortunately, due to his short stature, he was the subject of ridicule and criticism from his peers. Although he was never physically assaulted, the insults were constant, and this made it difficult for him to make friends and feel integrated. On the other hand, most of the students were more interested in sports or other matters, and very few people were interested in metal music, so that always left him isolated and alone. The issues at home worsened that unease. After his parents' divorce, his father moved out and only saw him on weekends. During the rest of the days, Joey had to help take care of his 2 younger sisters, especially after school when his mother was still at work. Suddenly, he had to stop being a shy kid and become the man of the house. Maturity struck him suddenly. Over the years, Joey gained a deep respect for his mother, who would get up very early every day, prepare breakfast, take the kids to school, then go to work, come back from work, prepare dinner for everyone, put them to bed, and repeat this process day after day, for many, many years. According to Joy, she had taught him very good moral values, even though many times he would annoy the entire neighborhood with his band and their provocative slogans. His mother worked to restore the family, found new love, and married his future stepfather. This man was the one who gave Jordison a job at the family funeral home. There Joey learned the trade. The hands, which would later take care of spinning and twirling the drumsticks, took care of embalming the dead and making them presentable for the wakes. During those years he spent surrounded by corpses, but that was not a problem for him, as he could not stand the living much. Time later he would say, "I am in a band because of everything I hate about everyone." Apparently, much of that anger and hatred originated due to criticisms and insults that he and the rest of the band received while trying to succeed in the small town of Des Moines, Iowa. That band that no neighbor wanted was called the Pale Ones, then they became Peak System and continued under the name of Melt. In 1995, Joey Jordison suggested another name change, and thus the famous Slipknot would arrive. Over time, the band expanded to include 9 members and each one wore their own mask. And do you know which mask Joey chose for himself? Yes, you may have guessed the mask his mother used to scare him. Obviously, it then mutated and he modified it, but this scare became a fundamental part of his life until his last days, as I told you at the beginning. In Slipknot, they fused aggressive metal and rap, putting them at the forefront of the new metal explosion, thanks to constant touring and live performances at Ozzfest. Their self-titled debut album from 1999 went double platinum. What they did outwardly was applauded and cheered. But in their native Iowa, the situation was completely opposite. People were very conservative in this town, and discouraged anyone who deviated a bit from the standards, and obviously a band with members using these horrifying masks, playing metal, and doing rap was off the rails but totally off the tracks, for what they proposed as a normal and decent person. They even told Jordison to get a real job and stop spending his money on new drum pedals, because that crap was going to lead him down the wrong path. While all the band members were degraded for a long time, they then had time to rejoice in the streets of their city, although Jordison expressed on several occasions that they were in a band with the best musicians in the world. He also stated that when they got together they loved each other so much that they wanted to kill each other. The uniqueness of their sound and the energy of their live performances attracted a devoted fan base, and the band continued to release successful albums like Iowa in 2001. The recording of Iowa was difficult for all the band members. In an interview, the drummer compared the experience of that process to being in prison, since they were all together until they finished it. Jordison added that everyone was intoxicated during the process. According to him, that last instance was a very dark time for the band, one he didn't like to talk about. During that time, Slipknot took a break, and that's when Jordison worked with Marilyn Manson. He even appeared in his Tainted Love video. In 2002, Joey, Murder Dolls, and Trip Arson formed a second band called Murder Dolls. The desire to keep playing was in their veins and in their day-to-day. By the year 2004, he returned to The Masks, and Volume 3 arrived, of Slipknot's Subliminal Verse. From that moment on, the band stayed at the top of the metal scene for years, and their impact on music was undeniable. Ironically, one of the worst moments Joey Jordison experienced was when the band was at the peak of their popularity while working on the album All Hope Is Gone. Jordison said his girlfriend cheated on him despite their serious relationship. As he loved her and he believed they would be together forever, the drummer was devastated by the breakup, to the point that he almost overdosed on the enormous amount of cocaine he had ingested over 3 weeks. His sister Annie helped him through this crisis. In a low moment, she sent him a photo of his nephew wearing a mask and playing with a toy drum set. He was so upset that he called him on the phone and the little one said, "I love you, uncle." That clicked in his head. Instead of sinking, he had a positive outcome as he reached, according to him, a moment of clarity that helped him change his life in a positive way. He focused on recovering from his drug addiction and continued with his life in the best way he could. In that struggle, both his psyche and body were at stake. Joey Jordison suffered various injuries and wounds while playing for Slipknot, from deep cuts on his legs and a concussion to a deep wound on his head after things were thrown at him. Even in an interview, he told how he had broken his knuckles with a part of the drum set and started bleeding so much that the entire drum of the instrument was stained with blood. Well, a detail that worked quite well for Slipknot. Though injured, he kept drumming without missing a beat. However, in 2008, the band had to cancel their European shows while on tour for their next album, All Hope Is Gone, because the musician broke his ankle. To avoid a bad recovery, his doctor recommended him to rest and take some time off. This led to the drummer being out of service for 6 weeks, but these health complications were nothing compared to what was going on inside his body. On December 12, 2013, the members of Slipknot announced in an official statement that Joey Jordison, their first drummer, was no longer part of the band. Fans didn't understand much why this had happened, since the official statement mentioned that his departure was for personal reasons. However, there was a moment when the drummer confirmed that he was actually fired for another reason. In 2016, Jordison shared his version of the events, expressing his outrage at the way everything was handled. The band members did not meet with him and never told him anything. According to Joey, I just received a stupid email saying that I was out of the band after I had busted my ass to create it. Despite his anger, the drummer did not rule out rejoining the band at some point, which never ended up happening. On the other hand, Slipknot's lead vocalist, Corey Taylor, was limited in the details he could provide about Jordison's departure due to legal reasons. However, he briefly explained the situation and said, "It's like when two people come to a crossroads and decide to take different paths. No matter how much you try to follow their path or make them follow yours, there comes a time when you have to do what's best for you." Taylor said it was one of the toughest choices he had ever faced. Joey Jordison claimed that the other members of Slipknot thought he had returned to hard drugs, and apparently that would have been the reason they decided he should leave the band. What they really didn't know was that the musician was suffering from a disease called transverse myelitis that had prevented him from continuing to play his instrument because it had immobilized the lower part of his body. And that's how our story comes back to the beginning. Transverse myelitis is a devastating condition that causes inflammation of the spinal cord, damaging the nerve fibers. Jordison described his experience as being filled with anguish. He had gone from feeling a slight pain to losing the use of his legs. He could no longer play. According to him, it was a form of multiple sclerosis that he wouldn't wish on his worst enemy. After Joey Jordison was diagnosed, he had to face a complicated path to recovery. After that difficult time, he progressed thanks to his rehabilitation. He began gym sessions and continued therapies to overcome his health issue. In one of his latest interviews, he said that it had been the hardest thing he had to do in his life. Over time and with effort, he managed to walk again and even managed to play the drums at his characteristic speed again. After his recovery, he didn't waste any time and formed a new band. Together with Jed Simon, Kyle Conkel, Matthew Tarrant, Callan Chase, and Steve Marshall, Jordison brought Vimic to life. The first album they released, titled Open Your Omen, was created during his recovery process, and according to Joey, this project was what literally saved his life and helped improve his health condition. Even though he was no longer part of Slipknot, he always held a deep respect for the band and its legacy. He was very grateful for having been part of this group, and even went so far as to say that without them he would not have managed to live so many years. Joey continued his new projects, hoping that myelitis wouldn't complicate his health as it had before. However, things did not go as he planned. Joey Jordison's tragic story ended on July 26, 2021, when he passed away in his sleep due to complications from his illness. The world learned of his death thanks to a statement from his family. Joey's passing has left us heartbroken and immensely sorrowful. For those who knew Joey, they understood her quick wit, her gentle personality, her giant heart, and her love for all things family and music. Joey's family has asked that friends, fans, and media respect their decision for privacy and peace at this incredibly difficult time. They also asked for the farewell to be peaceful without a crowd of people, and this painful process for the family and their close ones was done entirely in private. Then, they buried her remains in the Highland Memory Garden Cemetery in Des Moines, Iowa. Not much more was known until a year after her departure. Joey Jordison's family honored him with a video posted on his official website. The text written by his loved ones said, "The songs that accompany the photos in this video include some of Joey's favorites." He referred to these in many of the interviews he gave throughout his career when asked about the songs and artists that played a significant role in his formation as a musician. One of the most impactful is In My Time of Dying by Led Zeppelin, named by Joey as the song he wanted to be played at his funeral. His life was short, but his impact was significant. Joey Jordison made a big difference in many people's lives, and his influence extended far beyond aspiring drummers and musicians. This man who claimed to hate the world left a huge mark on it at just 46 years old. And that's it for today's video about Joey Jordison. I hope you found it interesting. I invite you to leave a like if you haven't already, turn on notifications, and tell me your Slipknot story, how you saw them, how it was. If perhaps you went to the hotel and got a photo with any of them, I want to know all your personal anecdotes with the band. And I also invite you to leave suggestions for possible future videos on this channel. I'm going to leave a couple of videos here for you to continue the marathon. And with nothing more to say, I say goodbye. My name is Magnus Mephisto, and this was The Diary.